Welcome to another Tech Help video brought to you by AccessLearningZone.com. I am your instructor, Richard Rost. In today's video, we're going to talk about splitting your database, how and why to split your database in Microsoft Access. Today's question comes from Junior, one of my gold members in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Junior asks, I've heard a lot about the benefits of splitting my Access database. I just have a small office with 3 users. The database seems to run just fine from a shared folder on my PC. Should I bother splitting it? Well, Junior, usually I say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But in this case, you may benefit from splitting your database in ways you didn't realize before. For example, if any of your 3 users have ever complained that the database was running slow, splitting it might speed that up. Or if you've ever tried to make design changes on one of your forms or reports and you had to kick everybody out of the database, splitting the database prevents that as well. So what exactly is splitting your database? Well, splitting your database is dividing it into 2 or more files. One file called the front end contains your forms, reports, queries, macros, and modules. The other, called the back end, contains just your tables. Splitting your database can make it more efficient. It'll run faster. It's easier to maintain and update. It's more secure. It reduces corruption, and it's easier to scale it up later. If you've got your Access database shared on your network with a couple of other users, this is probably how you're running it, an unsplit database. You've got one ACCDB file, the Access file. It's on a network share that could be on your PC in a shared folder or up on a server, and all of the users are running that file directly. Splitting the database creates 2 files. One has the forms, reports, queries, macros, and modules in it, and the other one has the tables in it. Now you can do this and run both files on the server, but again, all of your users are sharing the same front-end file, which isn't the most efficient way to do it. The better way to run it is to split the database and give each user a separate copy of the front-end file. That way all of their forms, reports, queries, macros, and modules are loaded on their computer. So that information doesn't have to go over the network wire. Just the data from the tables is transmitted. You can also encrypt that front-end file so they can't get into your form design, your report design, your VBA code, and so on. You could also split your backend into multiple database files as well. Certain users might have access to different information. For example, all of your sales reps don't need to see all of your accounting information. So your accounting people, the managers and such, could have a different backend database file that only they have access to. And you can control who accesses what through your Windows permissions. Later on, if you decide that you've outgrown Access for your data storage needs, you could easily upgrade to SQL Server or a cloud-based server if you want to deal with remote access. Now, what are the benefits of splitting? Well, splitting your database makes it faster and more efficient. Only data is transferred over your network. All the forms, the reports, all that stuff is stored locally on each user's computer. So that stuff isn't transmitted over the wire. Each user has their own local copy of the front-end file. This makes the database operate faster and the data is more readily available. Also, if you want to run reports on a large volume of information, you can make queries to copy that information down to your local database. So it makes one copy operation, brings all that data down into a temporary table. Then you can do all your reporting and running your reports on that local data, and so that's not all running over the network wire. I had one client that she had her month-end reporting that she had to do, and it took forever because every single report, every single query was running off the table on the server. I wrote one query to copy all that information down into a temporary table in her local database, and then her reports ran really fast. Split databases are easier to update and maintain. Design changes to the front end can be made without interrupting your users. If you're all sharing the same database file and you want to change one thing on a report, you've got to kick everybody out of the database. The only time you'd normally have to do that now is if you're making a change to one of the tables in the back end. But if you're just changing forms or queries or reports, which is 90% of the time what you're changing, you can modify your front-end copy and then just distribute a new front-end to your users. You don't have to worry about importing data. If you're running off of a single database file and you make changes, well, then you got to re-import all your data from the tables. Splitting the database avoids that. You could even have multiple developers on your network working on their individual front ends. You'd have to merge the changes, but if you are working on some management forms and you've got someone in the accounting department working on certain reports, as long as you get together and say, hey, don't change these things, I'll work on these things, then you can later put them together without taking the whole database down. Splitting your database is more secure. You can have separate backend files for secure data. Like I said before, you can have a different network share where your accounting information is stored, or credit card numbers, or things like that. And all your normal users are still using the same database, but they can't get to those tables. Sensitive information can also be stored locally if you want to. You don't have to put all of your tables up on the server. You could have each individual user has some of their information, like settings, for example, could be stored locally. And as I mentioned before, with encryption, users can't modify the database design. They can't change forms, they can't change queries, they can't modify reports. It's all locked down. Some other benefits. Microsoft Access has a 2 GB file size limitation. That means the largest any one given ACCDB file can be is 2 GB, even with the 64-bit edition. However, by splitting your database, you can have multiple files up to 2 GB in size. So now really your limitation is one table can only be a maximum of 2 GB. And even then, you can string those together. So knowing how to split your databases will allow you to have much, much larger sets of data. Splitting the database reduces corruption. Usually if your database goes corrupt, it's a problem with the front end file. This normally happens if there's a network error, for example, and the user loses connection to the server. 9 times out of 10, in my experience, the corruption is in the front end. And even if you can't repair it, you just replace the front end file. Copy it from one of the other stations. Generally, the data on the server is fine. And finally, with a split database, it's easier to upscale later to either SQL Server or a different server platform or a cloud-based database. You can very easily take those tables and just upload them to a different server platform and then relink your tables. So there's a lot of benefits to splitting your database, and there's really only 2 drawbacks that I can think of that are worth mentioning. First, distributing your front-end updates can be challenging. Whenever you make a design change, you've got to share it with all the different users on your network. Now, unless you've made changes to features they don't need, like if you've changed some managerial form that all the users don't need, that's fine, then don't bother. But if you want to distribute a new update, you can either email it to people or you can put it in a shared drive somewhere, tell them to download it, but it's a manual process. I do have a database template called the Access Updater, which I'll talk about later, which does automate this process for you. And the other drawback is that you lose referential integrity in linked tables. So for example, if you set up a relationship in your database between customers and orders and you've got referential integrity on with cascade deletes, that says if I delete a customer, delete all their orders. I usually don't recommend using cascade updates and deletes, but if you do have your database built that way, you will lose that ability if you've got tables in different linked files. That's almost never happens, but just keep that in mind. So as you can see here, the benefits of splitting your database far outnumber the drawbacks. All right, so how do you split your database? Let's walk through it. Step 1, back up your database. Wait, hold on. Let me put that in bold. Back up your database. You should have a good nightly backup running anyways, so make sure it's backed up. One more time for the people in the back row. Back up your database. Before you do anything crazy like splitting it or running delete queries or update queries or any major changes, back up your database. Okay, you've been warned. Next step is to create a shared database folder somewhere on your network. This could be something like a UNC path name like server share name or map a drive letter. I personally am preferential to drive letters. I have mine as z:\database on my network. If you have mapped network drives, Windows does a better job of connecting to those drives when Windows starts, versus if you just use the UNC paths, sometimes they don't connect right. If you don't know how to set up a shared folder on your network, that's a different video. Talk to your network administrator or look for my networking video. Make sure it's the same for everybody. It's got to be the same share name or the same mapped drive letter for every user on your network that's going to be using this database. Next step is to split the database. It's very easy to do. It's a couple clicks in Access. I'm going to show you how to do it in just a second. Then we're going to compact both databases. You'll have two database files now. You want to give them a good compact. Then we're going to encrypt the front end. That's making an ACCDE or an encrypted file. That's what we're going to distribute to our end users. And how you distribute it to them is up to you. You can email it to them if it's small enough. You can put it on your shared drive and tell them to download it, or you can use my Access Updater software, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. So let's see how this works in action. Here's my basic customer database. I use this template for a lot of my videos. Let's open this up and take a peek at it. It's a very simple database with a main menu, customers, orders, contacts, and so on. And if you've watched any of my other videos, you've seen this before. It has 3 tables in it: contactee, customer T, and order T. Now, right now, all of these objects are stored in this database file. What I want to do is split this into 2 different files and put one of them up on my server and then give a different front-end file to each of my users. All right, so I've already backed up my database. I've got my shared database folder set up. All right, there's mine. It's on my server, mapped as the Z drive. I've got Z and then database as the folder. So Z database is where my database is located. Now we're going to split the database. It's under Database Tools, Move Data, and then pick Access Database. Database Tools, Move Data, Access Database is right there. It says this wizard moves tables from your current database to a new back-end database. In multi-user environments, this reduces network traffic and allows continuous front-end development without affecting data or interrupting users. Basically what I just said. Then it simply says if your database has a password, you'll have to recreate the password when the new database is created. This could be a long process. Make a backup copy of your database before splitting it. Again, another warning. Would you like to split the database now? Sure. Split database. Access will prompt you for a location for your database. I'm going to put mine on my server database folder where I have it set up for all my users. Notice the file name is customer DB, that's the name of my database, _BE for backend. That's fine. You can change it if you want to. Then I'm going to hit split. Now, my database is pretty small, but if yours is big and you've got lots of tables, it may take a few minutes. Mine says database successfully split. Hit OK. Now take a look. Over here, your tables, the little icons have changed. There's little arrows next to them now. That indicates they're linked tables. Right? They're linked somewhere else. And if you hold your mouse over it, it says Z database customer DB _BE. That tells you where that table is located. Because you could have tables in here that are in different backend files. I'm going to cover that in a different video. If I go to my database folder, you can see there it is right there. There's the ACCDB file that contains just our tables. And if you open this guy up, you can see it contains just the tables. This database over here has links. That means it has no actual data in it. It's just links to those tables. All right, the actual data is stored here. This is the only file you have to back up on a nightly basis, unless, of course, you make design changes. You don't have to worry about backing up each user's front end. Have one copy backed up, of course. But any changes that they make to their data get saved on the server in these tables. The next step is to compact both databases just to make sure they're nice and small. That's real easy to do. It's under Database Tools, Compact and Repair. Just hit that. I have several whole videos on compacting and repairing and the benefits thereof. I'll put a link in the description below the video. Next, we're going to encrypt and make an ACCDE file for the front end. So we're going to go up to File, Save As, Make ACCDE. The file will be compiled into an executable only file. And then hit Save As. Now, I usually drop this in my server folder. So I'm going to drop this in my Z database folder. It's going to be customerdb.accccde, and then hit Save. Now I'm going to close Access down. So what have I got now? I've actually got 3 different files. I've got the original database file, the ACCDB file, that has just my forms, reports, queries, and so on in it. Keep that. Do not lose that. Okay? If you want to make design changes, this is the guy you're going to have to use. This file here is the one we just created, the encrypted file that we're going to give to our end users. And this guy here is the backend that has the tables in it. Make sure you don't rename this now, by the way, because these other databases are pointing to this exact file. All right, so once you've split it, you've got to leave that file name right there. Now, your users can open this file right here across the network, but you lose a lot of the benefits of splitting the database. What you want to do now is tell the users to copy this file to their desktops. Copy that file to their individual desktops, and then open it up from there. If you have to run around once and do it all for them, that's what you got to do. Set them up with a shortcut, because now this front-end database file will point to this back-end file on the server. I just put it here so it's easy for everyone to get access to it. If I open this guy up now, right, this one's encrypted. I can't go into design view, right? I can't change anything in these forms here. Yes, users can still come in and modify your tables, and there's a lot of things you can do to fully secure the database. That's a whole separate video. I've got a whole seminar on locking down your database so users can't just go willy-nilly and play with the data in the tables. I'll put links in the description below this video for how to lock down your database more. But that's basically it. You've got your original database. It's now split. There's your back end with your tables. And now this ACCDE is the encrypted version that you're going to distribute to your users. Now, when you make design changes, you have to make them in the original file up here. Open this guy up. This is your admin copy. Don't lose it. This is the only one you can still go into design view with. Okay? You can't reverse engineer these, by the way. You can't go from an ACCDE back to a ACCDB file, so make sure you don't lose this file. But when you make design changes, all you have to do, again, is go File, Save As, save this as another encrypted file, and then tell all your users, hey, download the new database. As I mentioned before, I've got a database available that does this update for you. You basically install it on each user's machine, set up your database a certain way, and then with one click, you can update everyone's databases on your network by copying a new front end to their systems. There's more information on my website. I'll put a link in the description below the video. So you've got your database up on your network, and it's running, and it's split, and everything is great. So what are some tips I can give you for improving performance? Well, the first thing I can say, and this really comes into play when you've got a really, really big set of data, a big table with lots and lots of records in it, try not to open objects that use all of the records. Like don't open your customer form and show all customers. Because if you got 200,000 customers in there and the user goes to the last record, that can take a while. A lot of data's got to come across the wire. So try to use search forms. I've got a video on my website on YouTube, how to make a search form. Even something simple like this can really improve performance. A simple search form where you can search for first name or last name or phone number, and it will bring back just a couple of records that match your search. Then open up the customer form based on the search results. This way you're not chugging through 200,000 records to open up your customer form. Again, I'll put a link to this video down in the description. Try to create data entry forms for adding new records. A data entry form, it's simply a property in the form that says data entry. That way, when you open up the form, it doesn't show all the records. It just goes to a blank new record, and you can type in new records that way. Now, I know sometimes you need them, and I use DLOOKUP all the time, but try to avoid aggregate functions and aggregate queries. All right, because the database has to chew through a lot of records. Right? If you don't need to DLOOKUP some stuff, try not to in a split database. And there are sometimes faster ways, like using record sets, to get information instead of using DLOOKUP. DLOOKUP is a great function. I use it all the time. I've got several different videos on how to use it, but it is resource intensive. It will chug through tons and tons of records to get the data that you want, especially dsum and dcount. And finally, try to use top X queries to limit the number of records returned. If you're pulling up a list of customers, and you really only care about the most recent 100 orders, well, pull up the most recent 100 orders and get that list of customers. Don't bring up your entire customer list just to sort through and get some orders. If you make one query at a time that limits your data, you'll make things faster and speedier than making multiple queries. So if you want customers by order, well, make one query first that generates a list of the top 10 customers, then bring that back and make another query on that maybe sorts them by name or whatever you want to do. Want to learn more about splitting your database and the benefits thereof? Check out the members-only extended cut edition of this Tech Help video. I will show you how to move or rename your database files using the linked table manager. Then I will show you how to set up multiple backend files. Remember, we talked about it earlier. If you want to have like your sensitive information for managers in a separate backend in a different network share, I'll show you how to set that up. And I'll teach you how to manually link tables so you can specify pretty much anything you want as a backend database source. How do you become a member? Click on the Join button below the video. Silver members and up will get access to all of my extended cut Tech Help videos, live video and chat sessions, and other perks. After you click the Join button, you'll see a list of all the different perks that are available: Silver, Gold, Platinum, and Diamond. But don't worry, these Tech Help videos are going to keep coming. As long as you keep watching them, I'll keep making them, and they'll always be free. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like and share. Click on the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel and be notified of any new releases. Check for additional resources down below the video. Click the Show More button, and you'll see a list of other links to other videos, downloads, resources, lessons, and lots more. If you have not yet tried my free Access Level 1 course, it's 3 hours long. You can find it on my website or on my YouTube channel. And if you like Level 1, Level 2 is just $1, and that's free for my members. Want to have your question answered in a video just like this one? Visit my Tech Help page, and you can post your question there. Also, be sure to stop by my Access forum on my website. And also look for me on Facebook, Twitter, and of course, YouTube. Once again, my name is Richard Ross with AccessLearningZone.com. Thanks for learning with me, and I'll see you next time.